Sorry for just standing you out for the last 2 days. Okay, so there was some, papers that I had to get reviewed for a conference, and that I was not. That is no excuse, but hopefully பார்க்கணும்ல. Oh, full. I think the full mode. Full screen mode போட்டதான் இருக்காமோ என்னமோ பார்க்குறேன். போட்டுருக்கீங்களா? அப்படியா? முன்னாடி வரணும்.
இப்படி கூட போகலாம் சார். நீங்க பின்னாடி இருந்து வரா மாதிரி கூட போகலாம் சார். நான் ஒரு முறை போட்டுக்காங்க. பின்னாடி இருந்து வரா
சரி பார்க்குறேன். சரியா?
வரா ஓகே. இப்போ மியூட்ல இருக்கு. அது மட்டும்
Okay, I can start. Have you guys decided on the person to? Yeah. What do you now? It's not that serious.
I don't know about the.
You don't have to decide. Good. Okay, so that should it's not. அது வந்து அங்க யாரு இருக்காங்க எனக்கு தெரியாது. இது பண்ணதான் தெரியும் இல்ல?
ஆமா.
ஒருத்தர் வந்தே வராரு. ஷேருங்க எடுக்கணும் அப்பதான். வச்சேன். இன்னும் யாரும் வரல.
இப்போ அவங்க யூடியூப்ல பார்ப்பாங்களா இல்ல இந்த கேமரால பார்ப்பாங்களா?
கேமரால இல்ல,
யூடியூப்ல தானே.
இதான் இதுல யூடியூப்ல ஜூம்ல பார்ப்பாங்க.
ஓகே.
5 நிமிஷம் ஆச்சு நீங்க ஆரம்பிக்கலாம் ஜாயின் பண்ணுவாங்க. ஏன் உங்களுக்கு டவுட்? கேட்காது.
கேமரா ஆன் பண்ணணும்.
கேமரா தேவையில்லை. இதுல வீடியோ பார்ப்பாங்க.
அதுதான்.
ஆடியோ மட்டும் தான்.
ஓகே. ஏன்னா கேமரா கனெக்ட் பண்றது அந்த பாயிண்ட் யூஸ் பண்ண முடியாது. ஏன்னா யூஎஸ்பி ரெண்டு தான்
இல்ல
இருக்கு.
தேவையில்லை. Okay, I think I'll start. Okay, as I said, what I'm discussing today is this node merging abstraction. The idea is that, we'll see, and then it is combined with the abstraction mechanism is, it merges nodes to reduce the size of the network. Okay. And it tailors the abstraction to a particular property. And any such abstraction method can, as I pointed out last time, can be combined with the CEGAROct approach. Okay, so whenever you have an abstraction mechanism, you can have the inverse of that. It's called refinement. When you have abstraction and refinement, then you can have a complete approach as opposed to that. The mechanism based on just abstraction can have inconclusive results. Okay, if it proves well, if it does not prove, then you'll have to do some analysis to see if it's real error. And if it is not a real error, then what do you do? Other than changing the abstraction. So, but there's a way to make it complete. You saw one instance of it. You will see another instance of embedding this abstraction mechanism within the CEGAROct. That's what goes to do. Okay, can you see this? I mean, use tiny font. No? Okay, if you can't do it.
Can you just move that mouse
away from that? Okay. Yeah. See, we've already seen this approximation in the context of ReLU-Plex. Okay? And that, I want to say, could be lots of different ways in which you can over-approximate systems. Okay? Programs, DNN, any artifact. Okay? So the abstraction that we saw was a property-independent over-approximation. They use abstraction over-approximation interchangeably. So the abstraction that throws away certain details from your model, and it also produces an over-approximation. We call that an approximation abstraction. Sometimes you can throw away details before actually over-approximating it. Well, we are interested in those kinds of abstraction that produce an over-approximation. Okay, for example, there, what you had was there's a way to get pointed. That's okay. Yeah, so there you were throwing away the ReLU constraints, right? So what is the kind of abstraction that it was, over-approximation that it was introducing? Okay. What it was whenever you throw away one or more ReLU constraints, the function, the input-output function that the abstract network, the two-way sum of ReLU constraints, that it, of course, it included the function computed by M. Along with that, it also permitted several other functions. Okay, so because if you were throwing away constraints, in that sense, it was allowing lots of different functions. Okay, in addition to what was permitted, which was actually modeled by the actual network. That's a very general abstraction mechanism. You could still, wherever you do have an over-approximation, this thing always holds to that. if you can prove something is unsat, okay, here what I'm trying to establish is that P impulse Q is valid in the original thing. We prove that by taking the negation that it is unsat. So it preserves unsatisfiability, not validity. So if it is unsat, if something is unsat on your over approximated network, then so is it is unsat. So that's why if you're able to do this, prove this, okay, then you can also be happy that that property holds true for your original system. Okay? Of course, all over approximations satisfy this property, and that's why they're useful. Okay, and hopefully by doing this abstraction mechanism should reduce in some sense the size of the network, so that whatever technique which you apply, in this case it was SAT solvers or ReLU threads, it was able to scale it. But there's other class of abstraction mechanisms called property dependent over approximations. Okay, so there it looks at it. See, this you could do regardless of whatever Q was. You could use this. Yes.
On the right side, is it NX and Q1?
No. It is here.
On the right
Why
side.
is it NX and Q1?
On the other side.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Is it called?
We should be. Because
the way it implies it is.
Yes. So this can be used for any Q, okay? But that's also that is very general, but there's a price also because it is too coarse, okay? And whereas you can get better abstractions by tailoring them to specific property or specific class of properties, okay? That you do. And this one, the node merging one, is one such. It is an abstraction mechanism that is tailored to your product. Suppose the properties of this form, y is less than or equal to c. For some constant c, y is the output of the network. Okay. For some fixed constant c, then what you want to, if you want to prove, you want to prove this, then that's what you want to prove as a property. So then you take the negation and no, I'm sorry. The property is of the form y greater than c. That should be okay. So y greater than c, and this should be y greater than c. No, it's kind of reverse. So you want to prove y greater than c, and therefore you have the negation of that. Okay, so the property that not proves y greater than c. There is a bit of a score here. So then you construct a model and catch such that for every input, the abstracted network returns something that is greater than the output will be greater than that. Then, if you have unsat and second, this has to be less than or equal to c. Okay? Then so is unsat less than or equal to c. Okay? So you could. Yeah, so if it gives something that is greater, and still it is, I think then you have your proof in the original network also. That's the idea. And by doing it does this by significantly reducing the size of it. Okay? And it does it by merging. And if it also reduce the size, then you might save effort. So that's what this thing is doing. Okay. So the key ideas behind node merging abstraction, we transform the network N to an equivalent one, okay, through a couple of steps, okay, in which every neuron satisfies a monotonicity-like property. That if you give it for great, increasing input, then you get increasing output. With decreasing input, you get decreasing output. And neuron, and this is done by identifying or classifying the various neurons inside the network in the hidden layers. Okay, I'll show you an example in a moment. that so you identify a neuron in a hidden layer other than the output of the as positive weights on all its outgoing edges are positive. Okay, it's identified as negative if all the outgoing edges from that neuron is negative. Okay? So a neuron in a hidden layer is said to be incrementing. Okay, if increasing its input increases the output. Okay, complete output of the network. And similarly, if you decrease it, then the output is not immediate output of that neuron, but rather the output of the entire network. Okay, so that's what determines. Similarly, it's said to be a decreasing neuron. If increasing it, if increasing it decreases it. Okay. The question is, given an arbitrary neural network, because the weights can all be arbitrary, negative, positive, and so on, it is not clear how to identify that as an incrementing or decrementing. Okay, and that's why you have to do a certain transformation, and you will have to get it into a form in which all the hidden neurons are either of these two kinds. And you can always you'll see that you can always get to that. After you get into an equivalent network in which every hidden neuron is either positive or negative, and it is also, once you get into that form, there's a way to classify whether it is increasing or decreasing. After that, you apply a merging of like-minded neurons. Okay, so you'll see that you can always merge thing that is incrementing positive. Okay, and then you will get over approximation of the current. Okay, that always increases the output. Okay, so. Whenever I copy the thing from the paper, by the way, this thing is, I'll upload the paper, okay? And that is a fairly easy to read paper. Okay? So once you get some idea of this thing, please go read that paper, and it's fairly simple. I don't know if you can read it or not. So let's suppose, you have something like this. So the idea is to repeatedly apply a set of equivalence preserving transformations on them. Okay. So consider here, now obviously this one and hidden neuron, you see, not all the weights on its outgoing edges are mixed. Okay, so some of them are positive, some of them are negative. But here, when the weight is 0, that edge is dropped. Okay, it's not true. Usually you have edges from every node in isolate going to -1. But here the 0 weight edges are dropped. Okay, whereas so first transformation is to get these kinds of nodes which are neither positive or negative. Okay, into something that is exclusively positive or negative. And that is done by just splitting into two nodes, a plus and a minus. Okay, and the plus will have all the outgoing edges on which the weight is positive in the original network. And similarly, the other thing that stands negative will have negative ones. Okay, and here this is the only negative. That's why you have that. Yeah. So this increases every mixed node, and if it is already a positive or negative, then you just tag it as such, and you don't need to split. So this transformation, and you can see why this is equal and preserved, right? Because after all, this thing eventually you will just add these things, and it's a two linear the one linear expression is getting split into two, which gets eventually added. That's all this, that's going on here. Yeah, and you kind of get the idea of why this is important, because when you have a positive node, anything, because all the outgoing edges have positive weight, if you increase its input, it will also increase its output, especially because the ReLU is also a monotonically increasing function. Yeah, and that's why that happens. And here, if all the edges are negative, then you increase the negative. The input, it decreases the output. After that, then the next step is to color them as ink or increment nodes or decrement nodes, as per the definition. So increment nodes are green, decrement nodes are pink. Okay, that's pink. And this transformation is done as follows. So first, the output node, of course, is always an increment node. Okay? There's, there's nothing else that's going on. It's just that itself is the output. So here, and then we do this by output is always, you start with that, and then you iteratively pursue this coloring method, goes from the output iteratively backwards, one layer at a time. And then you proceed backwards, coloring each neuron in a layer by inspecting all its successors, the color of all its successors. Okay. So, for example, this one, what do you need to color? Stick with. Okay. Yeah. Here you could, as an example, this one is already positive, and therefore this is a ink node, and this one is, in this case, it's a deck node, and here it is easy for that one. Otherwise, the color doesn't even show here. Thought I had the colors here. No, I think I put the wrong. Okay. No color here, is it? Do you see the colors? Okay, so if there are no colors, then let's do this. So now here it's fine. Okay, so there's only because there's only all of them are going to the same colored nodes, and therefore it was easy. Okay, so this one is, I had a picture in which there was color. So this one is increasing as the thing says. Okay, it doesn't matter the color. So increasing, decreasing, and this is also increasing. Now, so let's look at this. Here, how about what should this be? This V11 plus. See, it has outputs, successors, okay, mixed successors. Okay, one is increasing, the other one is decreasing, right?
It is a positive node.
Huh?
It is a positive node, but it is a mix with respect to increasing or decreasing.
No, see, it depends on the thing. How do you know? Because if it is this, if you increase it, these weights, the value that comes out of it will increase, but this is a decrement node, so that will decrease. So overall, whether it is positive or negative, it depends on, okay, in general, which way.
I'm saying it's a positive node because all outgoing edges are
Yeah, it is a positive node. Yeah, increasing and decreasing is hard to, it may be both. I mean, so it is hard to, in a guaranteed way, say that it should always be increasing or decreasing. Okay. So whereas here, for example, because this is an increasing node,
And since you know that if you increase it, this is a negative node, and therefore it always the output decreases. And for a decreasing output, an input will be decreasing as well, because this is an increment node, and therefore here you can color this definitely as a decrement node. Okay, and there will be a so you could have a D here, and that you were able to do it because there's all the successors are of the same kind in terms of increment or decrement. So whenever you have the successors, a mixed bag of the successors, then what it says is you split. Okay, that's what this is saying. Then you split it into two. Okay, as a positive or so you split it into two nodes like this done here. Okay, each of the first node is split into an I and a D. Okay, and so the I node will have the outgoing. It's outgoing. It will always go to ink, all ink nodes. Okay, and the other the ones that lead to a deck node is good as successor of this D node. Okay, and anyway, here you didn't have to do that because there was only the successor was not in its bag. Okay, so it was okay. Now, if you do this, once you do this, there's another further split. Okay, that you do depending upon what the color of the successor is. And after that, you'll be able to precisely determine whether this should be an ink or a deck node. And what should this be? Yeah, as said, because this should be an ink because it's going to be, and this is a positive node. This is an ink, and this should be a deck. Okay, and that's what we do. So whereas if you have a negative node, it'll flip. Okay, it'll flip if it is going to this is a ink node, because this becomes deck. Okay, and if it's a deck node, that becomes a big. Whereas here, the same kind of color propagates within. Then that's what should happen. And there is, I do see, and the color is not visible. So what? And then so you will have this as ink. An ink node, a green, pink, and a pink, and that's how. And you keep doing that all the way until the first hidden layer. Okay. So that's the transformation that you do, and this anytime you split, keeping the weights as is, the equivalence is preserved. Okay. So far, you understand, yeah? Okay. Now, then what you do is the merging happens after you do this, okay? At most, this process can increase the number of nodes in each layer by 4, okay? Because that can split to, and this 2 times 2, 4. Sometimes it may not be necessary for you to split. So at most 4, and then you do the merging. Yeah. Correct. Lower space, yes. So the abstract operator then merges like-minded nodes. Okay. Firstly, it merges nodes only that occur in the same hidden layer. Okay? Because that keeps it simple. Maybe there can be techniques where you could, this is kind of structurally easy. If you do merge across, I don't know, the analysis could be much harder. Okay? But the Ganta is trying to have you do for deep. This exercise as part of the project deep power is to abstract, arbitrary subsystems. Where here, this merging mechanism works, when the nodes that are merged are all in the same layer. Okay, then it merges the same, like if it is neck and ink, it merges two nodes. So here, for example, both these are green. Okay. Yeah.
So in the second diagram, so we are merging the V1 and V2, right?
Correct.
So from the X1 to V1, it is the weight is 1, and from X1 to V2, the weight is 4. So
Yeah.
the Y weight should be 5. Like it is.
Yeah. Okay, this is question. First, what is the deconvert? Okay, let me. You have to do it in such a way that that it preserves that abstraction property that we want. It has to be overall. The overall effect of it should be that for the same input, it has to give something that is output that is greater. Okay, that the whole thing is considered. Okay, so how do you do that? First of all, what does it mean to merge? Okay, when you merge these two nodes, you drop these two, the original two nodes. Okay, so let's call this concrete and this is abstract, because in the abstract, those two nodes will be merged into a single node. Then, so these are dropped, therefore all the incoming edges and the outgoing edges of those two are dropped. This is a new node that you introduce. Okay, the question is, what should their weights be? Okay, the weight of the incoming edges, what it should be, and the weight of the outgoing edges. Yeah.
We merge V1 to V2 and give out a node called say V1, and that will now act as a single node.
That's good. Yeah. That's what we're trying to do, and we'll have to fix the weights of this, the new edges incoming and the outgoing edges of this abstract node in such a way that, yeah, it's an over approximation, that it gives greater results as you increase. And one way of ensuring that is to take the max. If it's an increasing, take the max of on your inputs. Okay, I mean the input weights corresponding edges of your concrete network. So that's why this is 1 and 4, and the weight of this is 4. So that it will add more. Okay, you ensure that the version it will contribute more. So of the two, this is more dominating. And similarly here, between -2 and -1, you keep minus 1. No? Yeah, -1. And the output, you can just add them, because anyway you are adding them, and then you add them. Okay? So simple thing, simple way to get that is a very clever thing, okay, for getting therefore, and that's what is done here. So for pause ink and then ink, you take the max of the weights, as long as it is ink. It's an increasing node regardless of the positive, negative, you take the max of the thing. And if it is a deck node, then you will take the minimum of it. Yeah. Because that you will make sure that because it's increasing, then you will decrease. The output is always the sum of the weights of two things. And you can see a simple calculation will ensure that this way of fixing the weights will always increase. And it will be an over approximation as to the thing. Yeah. Okay, so now we can verify this, and if it verifies, okay, on the original profit, because we are assuming that there are two things. One is there's only one output, okay. So you can see that there are multiple outputs. How you deal with it is a question, and the properties of the fund why it's greater than C. Okay? You can see, you can think about it. Okay, I'll show you when it's shown in the paper that even when you have multiple outputs and properties that are disjunctions or conjunctions, you can encode it, that kind of a property, into something. You can add a few layers here that can encode an arbitrary property with some restrictions, okay, into something which has a single output and the properties of the form y greater than c. So that's a interesting exercise. It's given the paper for you to work it out, and we'll see how we can do it. But that's nonetheless, this is not so restrictive. Is all I'm point that I'm trying to make. Okay, so you can encode properties of other forms that are not restricted to this. Okay, so that's clear. So then, yeah. So far, yes. The need to refine happens in this case, for example, whenever, and that is true for Reduplex, the other abstractions too. So, if after the Reduplex algorithm, notice that it dropped all the ReLU constraints first. If you're able to prove successfully a particular property, then you're done. Okay. If you're not able to do, what is the kind of refinement to do? I mean, there's do anybody? So if you're not able to, the Reduplex algorithm, how does it start? It drops all the ReLU constraints. If it's able to, check it, then it is. If it is unset, then we know it is unset. Let's suppose that the unset check fails. Then what does it do? Yeah, then there's a little bit of detail, but eventually fix tries to fix and still see all the ReLU nodes and so on. But eventually, what does it do? It splits, right? That is, splitting is a refinement, okay? Because it's adding. When it splits one particular the constraint, it is as though you're adding that constraint that either this input is less than or equal to 0 or greater than 0. And then it is doing it in the way it is splitting the thing. It is two separate instances. So in that sense, it is the refinement is when you feel you do need to do the refinement whenever the abstraction doesn't prove it. Okay? And
when you say abstraction, suppose it means that the over approximation did not give an answer.
That is right. It was not able to, yes. Yeah, because we are assuming that it is validity that we're checking, then it was not giving answer. But if satisfiability is what we're checking, then it can be return unset. Yes, then you don't find things. Then in this case, for this abstraction, if you're say for 3, if it was returning the over approximation returning the property was 6, it's too big. Okay, as long as for all the inputs, the abstraction is such that it yields something which is less than or equal to 6, it is okay. Because the moment less than 6, it's okay. Beyond 6, it will be a problem. So if it is 8, then you won't be able to conclude because the original network would still be saved as per this. Okay, and you can't come to a conclusive answer. This is the situation where you will have to refine your abstraction, which means that it has to be made more precise or less coarse. Okay, and which means in our, since this is the criteria of our over approximation, is the how big the output was, we have to find something which is smaller than n bar prime, but still which is greater than or equal to the thing. So what does that mean? So here you just have to, in general, partition, okay, into divide that. Either that could be just pulling one neuron out of that merged thing, or you could chop it any way you want, right? Because as long as you chop it even half half or 2/3 or whatever, just split into two subparts, because when you merge it, since the merging always is gives increasing thing, it's the refinement. Doing the refinement is fairly easy conceptually. Okay, but there are lots of others. Assuming that we do have an abstraction, now there is a corresponding refinement. Okay, there are details. Okay, when you refine it, when you pull one node, you will have to kind of put it back, and then you have to consult the original network. Okay, and then put back its edges the same way with those weights and so on. Then you have to recompute probably the weights for the new partition that you change. So, but the refinement is so then once again from the paper, okay, CEGAR, okay, counter-example guided abstraction refinement. That's what CEGAR stands for. Okay, this is invented as a method for scaling model shaping. Okay, so model shaping is something that we use in here. Some model shaping is a very big field, okay? And it is able to verify a lot more properties than them. So it's in that context of model shaping, to scale model shaping, this abstraction. The notion of abstraction has been there, it's very, very old. Okay, I mean, you can go back to the use of abstraction to analyze artifacts, etc., is age old. Okay, so a pendulum, swinging of a pendulum being abstracted as a sinus is itself, modeling it as sinus itself is an abstraction, because in reality it is moving that's going on. So in that sense, it is used in physics, etc. The notion of being used in verification is something that was invented around 1990 or so. Okay, so this is a general framework for whenever you have abstraction in the refinement. What you do is, so you use abstraction, you have to generate an initial approximation. Okay, now that initial approximation, so here you could merge as many nodes as you want, all the way up to saturation, so that you have at most four nodes in each layer. Okay, and that could be the initial abstraction, or you could use something which is not the coarsest that you have. That you'll have to choose an initial approximation to start this process with, and then you do the verification. Okay, with that initial. That is unset, then you return unset. Okay, if not, then there will be a counter example for that. Okay? When you extract the counter example C, that you have to check if it could be a real counter example or not. Okay, because although it is a counter example on the abstract network, it may not be a real counter example. Then the counter example is said to be spurious. Okay, how do you check that? How do you check if its counter example is spurious or not?
If there are restrictions on the input,
Yeah.
for the actual input, then you can check those inputs.
Yeah. So in other words, you just simulate it on the original network. So the counter example will give the input, and as a matter of fact, these SMT solvers can give the entire sequence of inputs, even including what the values are as intermediate nodes, ending with the output node and a witness that it is indeed still less than the constant. So you can take that, and then you can check that if indeed is violative of the property. If it is, then you know if C is a counter example for C, then yes, because now we have found something which is, it should be SAT. Okay, in this case, it really means it's an error. Okay, there's a failure, verification is failed. Okay, otherwise, you do the refinement. Here, the refinement can be, lots of different ways of doing it, and I told you that there is something that reduces or increases the precision. And then you keep doing it. Okay, why does this method have to terminate? Okay, because I'm saying you keep repeating it. Okay, so every time, yeah. So why is it guaranteed to terminate? Or does it even terminate at all?
We terminate because we keep refining it and then we come back to the original.
That's correct. That's because in this case it's there are only finite number of nodes. Okay, so it does terminate. Even that, the other abstraction, the loop flex, that case splits eventually terminates because it is being done on the ReLU pairs of nodes, and they're only finite. Not all abstraction methods need to terminate. Okay, there are infinite state systems. Okay, so where the inputs are the kind of abstraction that you're using is not structural like it is here, and that there also it is structural. It is more semantic in the sense you are covering like for example, D poly it uses some interval bounds and so on. No? So the bounds are not fixed constant, but rather could be arbitrarily large. Then the thing could be the set of values that you're extracting over can be different, and then you keep chopping and chopping and chopping, and you may never terminate. Each of them could be infinite. But as long as this, so the precision loss is accomplished in a finitely many number of steps, then the reverse of it will definitely terminate, and that's the idea. Okay, so let's see. So we're almost there. Okay, so and I'll stop after this. Say there are various things here. So I think I have the slide. Yeah. I mean, yeah. What I'm saying is, I only made the point there exists a refinement, any partition of the original thing that you did. Suppose here I was assuming you could use the to saturation, okay, and then you so you take the abstract node that corresponds to a finite set of concrete nodes. You could split it into half, okay. So that is good, but probably you could do better, okay. As long as there is something like that. So there are lots of possibilities. There's no. Correct. Okay, you're right. You're right, because in this case, yeah, your question is about how you do it. Firstly, the point I was making was there are different inverse functions that you can actually use, and that too, whether you do split it into two or you extract one or not. What you are addressing is how exactly will you do, okay? And putting it back will require you to keep the original input also, because you will have to extract the weights. Yes, that is the implementation you do with it. But the thing is, the various questions are: what should the initial abstraction be? How many nodes do you? The various things that that are left kind of open-ended. It is also interesting that these are all what is called part of your strategy. Just like in ReLU-Plex, there was some open-ended things that you could do even during abstraction. Okay? Like for example, here, what should the initial abstraction be? Okay, you do all the way to saturation, or maybe you could stop even earlier. And even there, how many nodes do you merge? Okay, if not until saturation, which nodes do you merge first? And later, so that those questions are there. You probably want to merge those nodes that first, which cause as little, as imprecise and as precise as possible, as where the loss of precision will be as little as possible. So those kinds of factors will be there. Similarly, when you refine, there are two things there. Okay? There is an effective define operator. You have to choose something which adds the most when you add a particular set of nodes, and what measure you will use when you take the use. So there will be lots of interesting variations that you can do. But the other one is you would eventually want to, every time you refine, what you want to do is, you want that thing, if it is that particular counter example, which was causing the inclusiveness, that should be eliminated, okay? Because eventually, as you do, the hope is that that counter example will get eliminated.
Hi, sir.
This counter, the counter example itself is to guide the choice of your, yeah?
Yeah, I'm sorry, but there's a question in chat. So Dashina ma'am is asking, what is the tool used here?
Which question? The algorithms question?
No, there is another question in the chat.
Oh, in the chat. I see. What was that thing? Because with this thing and moving around, I don't see. Can you repeat the question?
So the question is, what is the tool used here to do SIGARD?
Oh, the particular tool, as I mean, maybe you can answer that yourself. There is that code,
so yeah, so they the SIGARD paper did their own implementation of this particular algorithm, and they have their own tool which can be used for this. But like we were discussing last time, it's not particularly user-friendly in the sense that they have hard-coded some of the ACAS-XU properties into the code, and they don't really have a very good way of, or very good interface of using it for other networks. So in most cases, I think it will be good to just implement this oneself. And that tool or the code that they used for the paper is not particularly, it's not written with efficiency in mind, is what it feels like. Although I don't know if that is fair to say. Yeah, but in my experience, it's best to like just rewrite it, and we are in fact looking at doing that here as well.
So that's why it is important. The paper does discuss, and we will discuss it getting late. So in the next class, we look at these issues. Okay, there are a couple of few different things that are given in the paper, the kind of measure that you can use, the kind of criteria that you can use to fix which nodes you use to answer these questions. And maybe the implementation, although the implementation of their CGAR may have deficiencies, the ideas that you use, the kind of measures to do these things are important to understand. Okay, so that if you were implementing something on your own, you know what you can actually implement, and all the things that they are discussed in the paper are fairly easy to implement. And I'm assuming, although I have not looked at the code, because that has, they have discussed a couple of algorithms for how to generate initial abstraction, okay, how much you do and what nodes you do and how to prioritize which nodes, as well as doing the refinement. Okay, so those two methods that they have described in the paper, a couple of algorithms for generating the initial abstraction as well as doing the refinement. And I'm assuming that they might have implemented that in their thing. And we will go over that with next time. Okay. So,
yeah, those are implemented. All the algorithms described in the paper are implemented.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. What I shown was algorithm 1, which is the general framework.
Yeah.
There are 2 other algorithms. Okay, so which is what you think they are implemented?
Yeah, and I am sure that I've seen that they are implemented. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But
okay,
again,
so,
it's not a very well interface. But yeah, concern.
Yeah. No, but if they were to implement it, then the question is they'll have to have something. Okay. I mean, I think they could implement whatever is discussed in the paper. Huh?
Yeah. So I think the best way to, or according to the paper, the best way to do it is to just abstract until you have just 4 nodes. And then they have a counterexample guided refinement algorithm, which looks at refining the nodes which has the maximum gap between the actual value and the
a variation even in the paper, okay, which is they kind of sample the inputs, maybe because it's getting late. So they have a variation. to the saturation. Okay.
Yeah. And then they find
inputs, and then they keep merging it, by prioritizing nodes to merge until the abstraction fails on one of the sampled inputs. Okay, on one of the sampled inputs. Okay, so then they stop. Okay, so there is a stop criteria that they use. Whether they use that, I mean, that is certainly discussed in the paper. There is even an algorithm, a pseudocode for that algorithm there.
Yeah. But
They use something besides just the saturation thing.
right, but in the paper they find that the saturation thing actually tends to work as well, or if not better than that.
Okay, in their experiment.
Yeah, in their experiments. Yeah.
Okay. So we will discuss this. Okay, all these things a little bit. So you will get a better idea of how you can implement, and it's not very difficult. Okay, for you to implement this because the pseudocode is there, and then there's a fairly good implementation. Okay, so any other questions? Who else is there? Is Sudakshina there?
So Dakshina ma'am asked the question in chat.
Oh, okay. Okay, so then I am going to I have to end